To put it simply, Candance Owens is a politics and drama YouTuber who warps celebrity news and true crime to fit primarily transphobic and anti-Semitic narratives. She also denies the Holocaust and says the real ethnic cleansing was of Germans. She's a grifter. Yeah, it's funny to see like a black woman do the whole like the Bolsheviks did the real genocide of Christians. Like, why doesn't anybody talk about that? It's like, bro, you are literally a black woman. Like, that is crazy. Because that is like, oh, the Jews are responsible for the death of like 60 million Christians. Narrative is like a white supremacist one. Like, that's not even your gripe. You know what I mean? That's not a conversation that you're a part of at all. It's also a ridiculous statement to begin with because, like, you know, the Bolsheviks are goated, obviously. And you know, what Christians were doing, what white Christians were doing to black women at the same time frame was not great, to say the least. Like, she's an OG grifter, right? As a black woman, she spent a good deal of time working for a Zionist white supremacist institution that was known as the Daily Wire. At the time, she was pro-Israel, obviously, but she was also still very much anti-Semitic. She said a whole bunch of stuff like, you know, Hitler just wanted to make Germany great. And nationalism isn't like a scary thing. Fascism, people keep saying it's fascism, but like Hitler just wanted to make Germany great. But then he became a globalist when he started invading other countries, and then that's when it spiraled out of control. But like what Hitler was doing in an effort to make Germany great was obviously concentration camps for socialists, Jews, communists, trade unionists, and whoever the superior master race of Aryans decided were undesirable. So obviously, even on that aspect, it wasn't great at all. So that was seen as, understandably, a deeply anti-Semitic thing to say. But the Daily Wire, led by Ben Shapiro, still hired her after that statement. And the reason why they did that was because, you know, that's not the full quote, right? No, it is. And I just said the full quote. But that, I mean, there's been a whole bunch of other there's been a whole bunch of other incidents as well, but it's not even just like her anti-Semitism necessarily. She has every single bigotry locked down. She is the type of person who has used her identity as a shield in an effort to basically say the shit that white supremacists at the time were too afraid of saying out loud and in public. She is a black face for white supremacy, right? I mean, she spent most of her career at the Daily Wire positioning herself against George Floyd and positioning herself against Black Lives Matter and against black people in general. So, love to scream hate when you refuse to see reason. I'm not, you know, people yell at me all the time about being a hateful, bigoted person. People say I'm anti-Semitic. So it's not like there are people out there who will routinely get called anti-Semitic for being critical of Israel. Candance Owens was anti-Semitic and pro-Israel at the time when she was working at the Daily Wire. She got fired from the Daily Wire, not due to her anti-Semitism, but due to her anti-Israel position. Because as Ben Shapiro has very openly stated, and I covered this at the time extensively if you want to go back and see my statements on it, but Candance Owens is a bigot of every order. I mean, she's anti-black, she's anti-women, she's anti-Semitic, she is everything. But what's interesting about Candance Owens is that she's anti-trans as well, of course, but she's not very good, I think, at packaging all this stuff. She does have a decent understanding of what gets her clicks, what gets her views. She does do a decent job of like merging, as another chatter was saying, true crime and like celebrity news with right-wing propaganda, and I think that's where she shines. That's definitely where she really pops off. That's why she's been able to. That's why she's become a ginormous force in the sphere of political commentary. But I do think it's interesting because like a lot of people just operate on this like weird binary where they think that like black people could not be servants of white supremacy. Like they can. And there are plenty of black Republicans who actually do this and play this role, play this job. I will say I do appreciate her not like going as aggro on the Islamophobia side as of late. So that's like, I guess, the one redeeming quality at a time when there's an unprecedented amount of Islamophobia out there, she has certainly scaled that back. But the point I was trying to make is that she doesn't necessarily do a good job of I think, building a convincing case on the things that she advocates for. It's like, but the auntie, as far as like I was not defending, I was asking anyway. I'm really thankful to Cenk and Hasan, who get a lot of crap because y'all built an audience at the powers that be, and I work in the media and used to sit in for Nancy Pelosi before her TV interviews because we're the same size. I know all the efforts folks put into getting Cenk and Hasan out of the way. That's all I wanted to say. Yeah. Look, sorry, Cenk is an American hero. Yeah, it's funny that you're saying that because I was, saying that love him or hate him, this is the one area where he has been a consistent voice in pro-Palestinian advocacy. Shaky Gurga is an American hero. I agree. Is she actually a Holocaust denier? I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't dove too much into her anti-Semitism stuff, with the exception of that very famous Hitler just wanted to make Germany great quote, which I guess she's now saying was taken out of context. But I actually did give the full context of the quote, where she was defending nationalism, German nationalism, by saying nationalism is not a dirty word and people shouldn't actually think it's a dirty word. That was the argument that she was trying to make. But I wouldn't be shocked if she has said other things that are also in the range of Holocaust denial. It wouldn't shock me at all. Douglas Murray is a monstrous dick rider of Israel, and he has made a living for many, many years talking about how nationalism isn't a dirty word, but at least he's smart enough not to associate it with Nazi Germany. He will always say, well, we shouldn't think nationalism is bad because the Germans up and were stupid and wanted to murder Jews or whatever, right? That was his argument. Whereas for Candance, she was like, nationalism is not a dirty word. And actually, German nationalism was good until Hitler decided to invade other countries. And then it became bad. And it's no, it was actually pretty bad. German nationalism in and of itself was really bad, as a matter of fact. Yeah. Oh my gosh. She has an entire... Candace Owens is basically, with the exception of being anti-Israel, I would say that with the exception of being anti-Israel, every single thing that he has said, I'm not saying every single thing that she believes, because I don't know what she actually believes, because she used to be anti-Trump, for example, back in 2016, before she got plucked by some incredibly Islamophobic ultra-Zionists, ironically enough, right? David Horowitz, rest in piss, and Ben Shapiro, ironically enough, were the reasons why she became this prominent fixture of Republican politics, because it was a bunch of ultra-Zionist, Islamophobic Jewish guys that literally plucked her and groomed her into becoming this force. And then she basically turned around and was like, actually, I'm anti-Semitic. And they were like, no, that's totally fine as long as you're pro-Israel. And she was like, of course I'm pro-Israel. And then she was like, I'm anti-Semitic and also anti-Israel. And they were like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? You can't, that's not how this works. You're fired. That's literally what happened. Okay. So, I mean, she's had every bad and wrong opinion in general. But I would say she was, Hasan, I've been hating on Candance is weird, Hasan. Hating on Candance is weird. Remember your hot take on Charlie Kirk not turning on Israel? What about that new group chat text? You say that's going to be fake or what? I do think that if you are tuning into Candace Owens' frequency, it's going to be quite difficult for me to convince you of anything, because I'm sorry to say this, but you're kind of stupid, okay? Because Charlie Kirk publicly turning on Israel is entirely different than Charlie Kirk expressing his discontent with his Zionist donors for constantly calling him a anti-Semite after years and years of service. That I don't think those text messages are fake at all. I don't think you understand. I never said those text messages are fake. As a matter of fact, I actually applauded the gray zone reporting on the previous text messages and the previous Charlie Kirk meetup that took place with Bill Ackman and whatnot. The only thing I'm calling into question is this false notion that Charlie Kirk was inevitably going to turn on Israel. These guys are shrewd political operators. They are tied to the hip with Donald Trump. And until Donald Trump turns on Israel, how do I know? That's a fantastic question. You want to know how I know? Because I was supposed to debate him on Israel, literally. That's how I know. Because what we were supposed to debate on was Gen Z, specifically on Israel. You are full of shit, man. Still love you though, gang. All right, brother. Charlie Kirk has never throughout his career sidestepped Donald Trump. He was attached to the hip. Once he was pro-Trump, he was initially anti-Trump, but once he became pro-Trump, he just stuck with Trump the entire way, and he got rewarded tremendously for it. And one of the best examples of Charlie Kirk actually recognizing that something was really up was the Epstein stuff, right? But if you recall, his own personal convictions on the Epstein stuff played no role in his commentary, because once he got the boss call from Donald Trump, he just straight up said, I'm done talking about Jeffrey Epstein. So do I think Charlie Kirk had a lot of anger and animosity towards Israel privately? Absolutely. They all do. Bill Clinton, literally in, I think it was 1996, came out of a meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu and very famously said, who the does this guy think is the superpower here? Bill Clinton also still was a monstrous dick rider of Israel. It doesn't matter. These guys all openly despise Benjamin Netanyahu and all of the arrogant Israeli envoys, but ultimately they still defend Israel. They're attached to the hip on Israel. You have to understand that, okay? You have to understand that. And Charlie Kirk, it was never going to sidestep the Trump administration. Charlie Kirk spent most of his career defending Israel aggressively, saying things that are heinous about the Palestinian population. You have to understand, people saying, or people having their own personal opinions about like how gross, arrogant, entitled, and annoying Israel is, does not actually change their output at all, does not change their decision making at all. Candance, being one of the only anti-Israel voices online, is going to cook the internet for the next decade, dude. She's hopping on this rocket ship and riding it to the moon, and these media illiterate Zoomers just eat this shit up. I know. Is there an argument he was paid to say horrible stuff about Gaza? Everything Charlie Kirk does is like, here, yeah, Brandon Carrot is a good take on this, okay? Charlie Kirk on a show. Listen, you have to kill and starve those kids. The rapture is coming. Israel's our greatest ally. My producer says Aaron Bushnell is Colonel Crispy. Charlie Kirk on Signal. Shlomo Borowitz didn't drop the usual 2 mil. Classic move from the shysters. Yeah, that's literally it, okay? If you think Charlie Kirk wasn't like, one, understandably angry at like the Zionist donors that were constantly calling him an anti-Semite, because he recognized that like the floor was moving underneath these guys, and he saw it because he was constantly at college campuses. So he was around these people, and he was like, guys, we have to do something about this fucking anti-Israel sentiment. Like, we have to find a better way to communicate to Gen Z about like Israel, because like we're losing the support. This is going to be a major issue, right? And also Brandon is Jewish, the one who did the Shlomo Borowitz joke, the person. I said this before. It's like it's much easier to convince Americans to take an anti-Israel position on the virtues of like anti-Semitic conspiracies than it is to explain to them a materialist, explain to them why America is so attached to the hip to Israel with like materialist analysis, and then on top of that talking about like the consistent advocacy, the consistent and pervasive Zionist lobby and the Zionist influence network that exists in Western society, so that the money flow doesn't stop to Israel. What do you mean anti-Semitic conspiracies? It's so much easier to convince an American that Jews control the media, and they, and they're a monolithic group that just wants to melt the Palestinians. It's something that Jews control the media, Jews control the banks. Like these sorts of concepts already exist, like the nascent anti-Semitic conspiracies, because you could just present it as like, look at how many Jews are in positions of power even though there aren't that many Jews, right? So that's already existed in American society and in Western society in general. There's also a long history of these sorts of takes that have played a formative role in even the Holocaust, for example, right? And numerous pogroms that took place beforehand. Like it's a classic meta. Blame one group that you have identified as the enemy always in an effort not to actually address the real material harm that the overwhelming majority of the populations are experiencing. A man by the name of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, as a matter of fact, talked extensively about this. The problem, however, I can't find any first-party direct source saying what you quoted about Bill Clinton. For someone who's against misinformation, I'd say you should research that quote. What, the Bill Clinton quote? Yeah, do you think Bill Clinton came out and openly said that he said that? Because I don't think that's, I don't think you're going to arrive at that. It's always going to be secondhand. Yeah. Responsible statecraft. Who's the superpower around here? After his first meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in 1996, Bill Clinton vented his fury before his staff about his visitors' apparent presumptions about the balance of power in the bilateral relationship. Who the f*** does he think he is? Clinton reportedly bellowed. Who's the superpower here? It's a very famous quote, by the way. Where did you ask? Wait, chatter, hold on. Not only is this like a super famous quote, where did you ask? And why are you... And I know the answer. It's ChatGPT. You asked ChatGPT. You absolutely asked ChatGPT, and instead of actually doing your own research on this, okay? But when I clicked on that source, it just kept going. Wait, what? I don't know what happened with that source. Anyway, yeah, this has been covered extensively, and considering that it's from a very long time ago, some of the quotes, some of the hyperlinks are inevitably going to break. Okay. Chatter was so horny to prove you wrong. He took 2 seconds to research, didn't see the top result, and came back to yell at you. I know. I think you guys got to use your own brain every now and then. It's a very powerful tool you have at your disposal as opposed to using ChatGPT for everything. Anyway, where were we? What was I talking about before we did this sidestep on the Bill Clinton? Oh, well, the reason why I was bringing up Bill Clinton is because, everyone has publicly and privately expressed their discontent with Israel and what Israel is doing, or with Israeli envoys and how annoying they are, but it doesn't really matter because they still are attached to the hip with Israel. Donald Trump himself is actually a perfect example of this. If you don't actually recognize that there is a higher order, a higher priority here for every single person in a position of power in American politics, that you always have to, first and foremost, be pro-Israel, no matter how much you hate people that are, no matter how much you hate the Israeli officials that are yelling at you because they're just so unimaginably entitled. Okay?